awesome.
Same.
I think this could be incredible. I think this could be a new pillar of World of Warcraft in a way the professions had not been in the past. Now, obviously, this is my pre-playing it opinions, pre-seeing it opinions. This is talking about design goals, what this could do. Obviously, it will run into some issues when we get into the real world. Whatever, that's normal, that's expected. I think one thing that's important, though, is that we decide to understand something, right? Sometimes there are pros and cons to different systems. And you actually have to get a whole bunch of the pros, you have to choose a few cons. That's okay. If you excessively problem solve every single con out, you can sometimes remove a bunch of the pros or water them down. So then you just get a streamlined, soulless piece of shit. And that is where there's always a problem with World of Warcraft, because if something is good, then, I mean, it's MMO gamers. We unironically will ruin the game for ourselves. Yeah. And it's the sort of thing, we'll have fun doing it. Right? But it's like, you know, they could design some like big, crazy, intricate tapestry of, you know, incredible crafts and depth. And everyone's just going to follow a guide to get this. Mm-hmm. Right? That's, you know, that's always the problem with MMOs. That's always the thing where it's like you think of a really cool design. And it's a really cool design on paper, people really enjoy it, and then you realize, oh wait, as soon as this goes into an endgame MMO, it's going to be chaos. I think they've done a few good things to actually get around that, though. And I also think they have actually harnessed that. They have harnessed the way that MMO gamers work with the work order system. And I think a really, really novel way that is, just really smart. Really smart. So let's dive in. I mean, look, I remember when I began to play WoW, when I came online as a WoW player, because you know the way we all played WoW, but then we all had that expansion where we came into our own. Maybe the expansion after we had already hit cap for the first time. So I hit level 70, and that was like the first time that I was at level cap when it was the cap of the current expansion. And, you know, I run around Sunwell being like, oh, look, cool, pretty colors. Then I go to Wrath. Then I hit level 80. Then I'm a moron for a few months. And then I come into my own. The Cobalt Shuffle. Was it the Cobalt Shuffle? The Saronite Shuffle. Yeah, the Saronite Shuffle. Doing all these profession things. And it used to be such a major part of my gameplay. It was before Time is Money happened. Check out our video on that today on the channel. Something new and different. Maybe, you know what, Matt, we'll talk about that video later on the stream. Because it represents more than just itself. Yeah. But there's so much gameplay in that, in the shuffle. And just all those like little economic things. And I felt like a lot of that just kind of got watered down and got weaker and weaker over time. And then frankly, with the Legion thing, I get that it came with a bunch of content, but as somebody who was just interested in intricate crafting, to me it was kind of boring. Whereas with this, it looks like they are really trying way harder to make an awesome actual crafting game. Which is highly relevant to me. I can't exactly... in my personal life, let's just say, I end up thinking about crafting games a lot, because... how do I do this without being fucking weird and evasive? Basically, girlfriend's working a game, heavy crafting elements, so, you know, we'll often bounce ideas off each other, and that's meant that I've been thinking about just, like, crafting systems in games a little bit more. And there's like so much to them. There's so much potential in the crafting system for a game. And it felt like World of Warcraft the longest time had such an easy, simple thing for crafting. And they went like a little bit further with the optional reagents. But here, they're like really trying to design something. Trying to design like a crafting game in WoW. Not just you can do some crafts in WoW.
Yeah, because it was always...
what I think's cool.
It was always like, I guess... the best way to maybe explain it is how... in the original vision for World of Warcraft, raiding was an endgame pillar, but endgame was a small portion of the game. The rest of the game was so much more. Leveling was so much important, but it wasn't leveling like leveling the goal. Leveling was, oh, you go and experience stuff in the world. Mm-hmm. So nothing was super hyper developed for like optimized gameplay or anything. It was all just a load of stuff you can do. And professions never sadly evolved too much past that point. They got streamlined a little bit whenever stuff like the having to go to BRD for the, I can't remember what it's called, but the anvil. Whenever having to go, Black Flame Anvil, I think it was called. Whenever you stopped having to do stuff like that. It kind of got simplified while the end game pillar kind of got a bit larger, and that just meant that even keeping it like maintenance pace of professions and some changes, they were still always playing second fiddle to the rest of the game. Whereas they used to feel like so much more a part of the game because they are, and they're still mini gaming, and you know, I guess I probably could call it mini gaming in terms of what you're doing with the auction house, making a load of money, making that stuff is like, it's not game design, that's kind of the sandboxy bit. Whereas they're more inherent or more intentionally trying to design, hey, this is a pillar of actual gameplay.
Yeah.
When you log in, you go, I have actual designed goals and stuff like that, and a path of progression throughout this. And that's something they tried in Shadowlands, but they only did it with the legendaries, and that was like clearly very quickly implemented and not super thought through.
And they finally have the fucking balls to put good gear in this shit. And I
Yes,
like how they've
that's
done
great.
the gear, mostly. We'll see. I mean, there's been some complaints about the gear thing, but like, look, you can craft Mythic quality gear. Now, to do that, you're going to need soulbound reagents from Mythic. And if you can't do the crafting yourself, you can use the work order system, and another crafter can do it for you, and they'll be compensated for that. So that's like a neat little system. But I think what's really cool about that is it actually gets us a lot of the deterministic gear progression that we would have wanted from a badge system, but integrated within the crafting loop, meaning that it's involving the economy and involving other players. Which, assuming that the baseline gold earnings for like normal people, that's reasonable, then we should be getting to a good place. So it's all getting quite interesting.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of people in chat saying, you know, I don't want to have to raid to make good stuff. That's a problem we'll get into, but it's like, you can make the good stuff, it's just you're not making it for yourself. And I think that's one of the problems you're going to have. But if you want to just craft and have no interaction with any other part of the game, then you're better off going and playing a game that has just pure crafting, because World of Warcraft is about gearing, always kind of has been, always kind of will be, and that's never going to detach. So it's either you get this with some asterisks on, hey, there's mythic stuff, you can aspire to craft that, you'll have to craft it for someone else. There is the aspiration to be a mythic raider, but you either get that or you get something massively neutered so it doesn't interact with gear. That's kind of the problem.
Yeah, it's like
That's the design space they're working within.
I'd rather have this
to work. Yeah, this is like, in an ideal world, I guess, where gear was all just say whatever, you could have whatever you want. Maybe, but that's not how it works. And I think this is like, you won't have to raid yourself, you will do it for other people. And that's the downside.
Yeah, and I think you can get, like, compared to other points in the game's history, better gear via crafting than usual without doing going out and doing the raid content or the Mythic Plus or the PvP, because any of those can feed into crafting. The other side of it too, though, is the actual gear, the crafting gear.
Yeah.
Like, you're actually, you know, you're a blacksmith and you're making blacksmithing gear for yourself to use when you're blacksmithing. And they've done that via a system where you don't have to, like, swap your gear sets all the time, thankfully. But that means that, like, you'll have your own, like, blacksmithing set or whatever to, you know, to try to get good stats on.